Good afternoon, and after a short delay for technical difficulties, we're ready to begin. This is the first seminar for the semester for the CERIAS Security Seminar, and I'm really thrilled to introduce our speaker today, someone I've known for a number of years and worked with on a number of projects, as well as followed things she's done. There's an incredible biography on the webpage if you want to look at the background. But Jenny Rezmierski has been working to help people for her whole career in a number of different guises. And as a professor and as an administrator at the University of Michigan, she's been particularly interested in issues of policy having to do with privacy, security, and appropriate use of computing resources. And that's led to a number of very highly cited projects. She's going to tell us a little bit about some of those results today. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jenny Rezmierski.
Good afternoon. I know it's late in the day, and I hope I can keep you interested in this period of time. I want to talk to you about the latest research that I've just completed, and it has to do with finding factors related to the cause of computer-related incidents. I am typically more active and closer to my audience, so I will tend to want to get away from this desk and out there close to you because that's the way I teach. But I am sort of locked here for this presentation. So let's informalize the whole thing a little bit by giving you opportunities to ask questions as I go through the presentation. And I'll also ask you some questions as well. The first question that you may want to ask is, what is a computer-related incident? Because that's, in fact, what this whole research is about. Let me give you a little background on me for a second. I'm a psychologist by discipline. My training and teaching is in ethics and policy and computer security, so it's an odd mix of things. But what I really care about is what happens to people in the middle of their use of technology and their use of computers. So you'll see this kind of blend as I talk about my research. I am as I told Fadi Bors earlier, I'm a retirement 101 failure. I retired in 2000 and was asked to continue teaching for two of the colleges. So I teach for the School of Public Policy and the School of Information at Michigan. And this semester is the very first semester in 40 years that I have not been working full-time or teaching. So I'm just writing this semester. But I'm writing about the results of this research that we just finished. And so that's the study that I want to talk with you about today. The study is called CIFAC, and I'll come back to the kind of play on CIFAC, CIFAC, Computer Incident Factor Analysis and Categorization Project. Was funded by the National Science Foundation. It was one of three projects that I wrote a couple of years ago, all of which got funded. And so the two of them were related, and this is the larger of those two. It's the only study of its kind in that it is a very direct person-to-person gathering of data, and I'll talk about the methodology on this because it's very important when we talk about information security incidents and computer-related incidents in general, to think about the methodology. People are not willing to give up information about incidents quite as readily as is needed for good research. So we'll talk about that methodology. And this is a website in case you want to go and see the full report. If I were to say to you, what is a computer incident, I'm not actually giving you enough time without putting this up on the screen. But you might be thinking first and foremost about computer security incidents, attacks on systems, for instance. But what we found in doing our research and doing our look at the literature and our study of the literature was that people who were defining incidents that narrowly, who were looking primarily at systems vulnerabilities, were missing a vast array of incidents that were occurring and things that were really taking our time as system administrators and policy people in institutions and organizations. So it was very important not just to be focused on the vulnerabilities of operating systems and the very careful categorizations that have been taking place there, but instead to look more broadly at the kinds of things that were happening on computers and through computers that we can define as computer-related incidents. To that end, we defined these incidents that we looked at as any action or event that takes place through, on, or involving information technology resources, whether accidental or purposeful, and that's very important, those two distinctions, that has the potential to destabilize, violate, or damage the resources, services, policies, or data of the community or individual members of the community. So you can see it's very broad, but the fact is those are the kinds of things that are happening. They fall within that definition. I had in my mind when I started this research that if we could identify a categorization system that could reliably be used by people, it would allow us to communicate across institutions and organizations better, and we could begin to do some trend analysis. So we tried a categorization system in this project. We did some preliminary studies with focus groups, and we looked at the category systems that different universities are coming up with as they list all of the incidents that are occurring. And pretty much there is agreement on copyright violations, but beyond that, there's not much agreement. When somebody says it's a certain kind of an attack, it may not be the same thing that another university is referring to. So we defined just 3 categories and wanted to test in this research whether or not people could reliably use these categories. Incidents that focus on people, we called people incidents. Those were things like electronic harassment, stalking, incidents where a perpetrator is trying specifically to do something to discredit a specific individual or to get information from that individual. It was very individual focused. We defined systems incidents. There are those incidents that were focused on systems. Most of you will think about those pretty readily, I would think. Those are the denial of service attacks, attacks on the system viruses and worms, things that are designed to interrupt the system per se. Pretty general definition. And data incidents, which we have been watching for some time, it grow in sophistication and in number, are incidents where it's not the person that you care about or their specific data, but you're after the data itself. There may be cases where an individual is trying to access the data to change it or to access the data to steal it and use it in some other environment, or just to alter the data to cause the system not to work. But the focus of the activity is on the incident. We asked all of our participants, when they described incidents to us, what the primary focus of the incident was. Was it people, data, or systems? Now, I'll tell you right up front that I don't think that we learned a lot from this categorization system, and I'll tell you why a little later in the presentation. But we did learn one thing. We learned that defining it like this, focus on people, focus on systems, focus on data, was not sufficient for us to draw out of our participants the kind of information reliably that we needed. We'll come back to that. So one of the things we really wanted to know is what are the causes of these incidents that are occurring? And we have to ask, are incidents really happening? Or is it just hype? What do you think? Do you think incidents are happening in corporations and in institutions of higher education? Or are they just ankle biters, as I would call the variety of things that happen in a